Welcome to X Confessions Unlocked, where lies, betrayal, and truth collide. Kindly subscribe so you don't miss any of this. We share new stories daily. Stick around and unlock the drama. Now, let's get into today's story. You ever have one of those moments where someone says something so wild, so utterly insane, that your brain just kind of stalls for a second trying to process whether they're joking or not? Yeah, that's how I felt when my ex-fiancée, with complete sincerity in her eyes, told me, if you loved me, you'd buy my parents a house and a brand new Mercedes Benz. For everything they've done for me. Not for us. Not even for her, technically. For her parents. I didn't say anything right away. Just nodded. Smiled. The kind of slow, hollow smile you give someone when you're buffering hard on the inside, but still trying to look like you're a sane, functioning adult. Then I excused myself to the kitchen, closed the door, and just stood there for a solid 3 minutes wondering how in the hell I got to this point in my life. Let me backtrack a little. I'm Daniel, 34. I'm a mechanical engineer and part-time masochist, apparently, judging by my past relationship decisions. I met Valerie. Let's call her that because her real name still makes me flinch slightly. 3 years ago at a friend's engagement party. She was smart, charming, dressed like she read Vogue for breakfast, and wore sarcasm like perfume. I liked her immediately. She liked that I was stable, had a decent job, owned a modest home, drove a practical car. She said it made her feel secure. Now, in hindsight, secure might have been a euphemism for convenient financial stepping stone, but at the time I didn't think too deeply about it. Love makes you stupid. So just being in your 30s and thinking, finally, someone gets me. Things were good in the beginning. The first year was great even. She made me laugh. She introduced me to new food, new music, dragged me to art galleries and wine tastings I didn't know I'd actually enjoy. I thought we were building something solid. Serious. Around the 18-month mark, things started to shift. Subtly at first. Little comments here and there. Like how her coworker's boyfriend had just taken her to Paris, just because. Or how her cousin's fiancé was renovating her entire condo for her birthday. And when I'd smile or brush it off, she'd go quiet and say something like, "Don't worry. I know you're doing your best." It was like relationship gaslighting via passive aggression. Then came the money conversations. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not stingy. I make decent money. I pay my bills. I have savings. But I'm not driving Ferraris or rolling in hedge fund-level wealth. Valerie, on the other hand, had expensive taste and 2 parents who apparently believed they were royalty whose crown jewels had tragically gone missing. They never said thank you when I picked up dinner. Never offered to split a tab when we traveled together. Her mom once looked at my watch and said, "Oh, honey, that's cute. My dentist wears one just like it," with a smile like she'd just complimented a stray cat. But still, I love Valerie, so I tolerated it. Told myself it wasn't that bad. We got engaged last year. I proposed on a weekend trip to Aspen. It was picturesque, snowy, cozy. She cried and said yes, and I felt like I'd done something right with my life for once. Things escalated quickly from there. Suddenly, we were planning a wedding that looked more like a royal coronation. Valerie's mom had a binder. Her dad started calling me son in this weird, patronizing tone, like he was gifting me his daughter from atop a throne carved out of ego. We toured venues. She wanted the 4 Seasons. I suggested a beautiful vineyard just outside the city. Half the price, twice the charm. She looked at me like I'd proposed holding the reception at a bowling alley. "This is the only wedding I'll ever have, Daniel," she said, arms crossed. "Do you want people thinking you're cheap?" That was the beginning of the end. I just didn't know it yet. Now, fast forward to last month. We're sitting on the couch. She's scrolling through Instagram on her iPad, showing me pictures of some influencer wedding. Matching Rolls Royces. A private gospel choir. Ice sculptures. I'm doing that thing where I nod every 30 seconds just enough to avoid being accused of not paying attention. Then she turns to me, out of nowhere, dead serious. "I've been thinking," she says, "if you love me, you buy my parents a house. And a new Mercedes. I mean, they raised me. They sacrificed so much. It's just what a real man does when he's marrying into a family like mine." I blinked. She said it like she was asking me to pick up milk on the way home. Not like she was demanding 2 six-figure purchases for people who actively sneered at my Costco membership. I didn't argue. I just nodded. My body was moving on autopilot. Later that night, while she slept like the entitled Disney villain she apparently was, I sat at my kitchen table with a glass of scotch and my laptop open. I stared at our wedding planning spreadsheet, at the catering deposit, the dress fittings, the venue reservation. I closed the laptop, took another sip. and thought, nope, I'm not doing this. Next morning, I called my friend Chris, my best man, and told him the wedding was off. His only response was, it's about damn time. Then I started calling vendors, canceling appointments, refunding what I could, eating the loss on what I couldn't. I wrote Valerie a letter, not an email, not a text, a letter. I kept it short. Val, I love who I thought you were, but the version of you I'm marrying isn't someone I want to share my life with. This isn't a relationship. It's a transaction, and I'm done paying. Take care of yourself. I left it on the kitchen counter, took my work bag, locked the door behind me, and stayed at a buddy's place across town. For the first 24 hours, it was silent. Then the storm hit. She must have gotten home around 6 p.m. and saw the letter. I don't know what happened next, but by 7:03 p.m., I had 17 missed calls, all from her. 3 voicemails, one from her mother, one from her dad, and one very long one where Valerie was crying, swearing, begging, and threatening to sue me for emotional distress, all in the same breath. I ignored every single one. The next morning, I went to my house early, planning to grab some essentials. Maybe a few clothes, some documents. Nothing major. That's when I saw them. Her entire family. On my lawn. Her mom, in full Chanel. Her dad pacing like a lawyer in a courtroom drama. Valerie, red-eyed, standing next to her sister, who was filming on her phone like it was an episode of Keeping Up with the Fiancés. I parked down the street and just watched for a moment. Let the absurdity really sink in. Then I called the cops. Because I'll be damned if I let a bunch of emotionally manipulative drama vampires stage a protest on my grass like I owed them alimony. When the officers arrived, Valerie ran toward my car, tried to open the passenger door. We need to talk, Daniel. You can't just leave. I looked her dead in the eye and said, actually, I can. And I did. She started screaming about betrayal, how I humiliated her, how I'd ruined her life. The cop stepped between us and asked her politely to vacate the premises. Her dad tried to say something slick about how I'd better lawyer up, and I just smiled and said, for what? Refusing to buy you a Mercedes? Go ahead. I'd love to see that court case. Eventually, they left. But not before her mom tossed the engagement ring box onto the hood of my car and hissed, you're a disgrace. Honestly, it was the nicest thing she'd ever said to me. That night, I sat alone in my quiet house and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. Not heartbreak. Not regret. Just this peaceful, cold clarity that I'd dodged a bullet wrapped in Prada. I could breathe again. And that, my friends, was only the beginning. So I thought the worst of it was over. I really did. I figured once the circus of crying and threats and ring-flinging on my hood ended, they'd all crawl back into whatever luxury car-shaped hole they came from, lick their wounds, and go complain about me at their next wine brunch. But nope, they weren't done. Not even close. Because 3 days later, I came home from work, and guess who I found sitting on my porch like they were waiting for their Uber Eats? Her parents. Her parents, not Valerie. Valerie was apparently too heartbroken to face me, her words via text, so she sent the royal delegation instead. King entitlement and queen guilt trip, perched in their pastel polos and expensive sunglasses, acting like we were about to settle a land dispute in 18th century France. I honestly considered just turning the car around and leaving. But I was tired, and I knew I had leftover pizza in the fridge. So I parked, walked up, and said, this isn't happening. Go home. Her dad stood up, smoothed his shirt like he was about to give TED Talk, and said, Daniel, we need to talk. What you did to our daughter. No, I said, cutting him off. I didn't do anything to her. I just finally said no. Her mom jumped in then. We understand cold feet. We really do. But Valerie loves you, and this little tantrum of yours has really put her through a lot. Tantrum? I said, laughing. You're calling me canceling a wedding a tantrum? Because I wouldn't buy you a house and a car. Her mom blinked, like I'd said something in an alien language. You're going to marry into this family, Daniel. That comes with responsibilities. Providing is part of being a man. I should have expected it, but it still hit like a bad sitcom script. So I laughed again, stepped past them, unlocked my door, and said, this conversation is over. You don't live here. You never will. And you're not entitled to a damn thing from me. I shut the door behind me and leaned against it, heart pounding harder than I wanted to admit. Because the nerve of these people, off the charts. They stayed out there for another 15 minutes. I could see their shadows pacing past the frosted window in the foyer. Eventually, they left. I exhaled, drank the last beer in my fridge, put on some lo-fi hip-hop, and just sat there trying to unwind. The next morning, I got a call from my mom. She sounded confused, a little worried. Sweetheart, she said, did something happen with Valerie? I blinked. What? Well, her aunt called me. Said you left her at the altar and ran off. That she's devastated. That you embarrassed the family. I swear, I almost dropped the phone. Apparently, Valerie had started a whisper campaign, telling everyone who'd listen, family, mutual friends, co-workers of mine, she'd met exactly once at a barbecue, that I'd abandoned her out of nowhere, that I was emotionally unstable, that I screamed at her parents and threatened them, that I'd been unhinged for months and she was worried for my mental health. And the kicker? She'd said I canceled the wedding because I couldn't handle her success. Valerie is, well, she was an influencer. Small time, nothing viral. But she'd cultivated this whole online persona of being this polished, elegant, well-spoken queen of aesthetic everything. Her audience? People who live and breathe aspirational content. Clean kitchens, designer lattes, inspo quotes in gold font. And now she was using that platform to play the heartbroken victim, subtweeting about men who fear powerful women and when loyalty gets punished by weak masculinity. Posting sad selfies with cryptic captions like, I still would have chosen you in every lifetime, even if you never chose me. Give me a break. At first, I was furious. Then I was just exhausted. I didn't respond, didn't post anything, didn't text her back or call her out. Instead, I sent an email to her directly. One paragraph, short and sharp. Valerie, you're free to tell whatever story you want. But if you continue spreading lies about me, especially ones that could affect my job or reputation, I will not hesitate to involve a lawyer. Your version of the truth doesn't come with immunity. She didn't respond, but the cryptic post stopped. For a while. A week later, I got a notification from an old college friend, someone I hadn't talked to in years. Dude, are you okay? He texted. I said, yeah, why? He sent me a screenshot. Valerie had apparently messaged him, and probably others, directly, saying she was concerned about my well-being and thought maybe one of my guy friends could check on me. She framed it like some dramatic cry for help, like I was a walking mental health crisis, and she was just so selfless for caring, despite everything. It was sick. I took a breath, reread the message 5 times, and then I did something that surprised even me. I replied to her one last time. I said, Valerie, stop. I'm serious. Whatever pity parade you're trying to create for yourself, leave me out of it. I didn't humiliate you. I set a boundary. You made choices. Live with them. This is your last warning. She read it. Didn't respond. That night, I blocked her on everything. Socials, email, phone, even Venmo, just in case. I thought maybe, finally, that was it. But 2 days later, I got a letter. A handwritten letter. Slid under my door like I was in some Jane Austen drama with a 21st century twist. It was from her dad. 3 pages. Rambling. Pseudo-philosophical. Something about family legacy and pride, and how a man's worth is determined by how he uplifts the women in his life. I stopped reading halfway through and tossed it in the trash. I was done. Done being the rational one. The one who keeps the peace while everyone else throws grenades wrapped in fake smiles. So I did what I should have done months ago. I lawyered up. Not to sue them. Not to retaliate. But to protect myself. I had my lawyer send a cease and desist to Valerie and her parents, citing slander, harassment, and unwanted contact. It was clinical, cold, legalese-laced, but got the point across. And it worked, because after that, everything went quiet. No texts, no porch sit-ins, no subtweets, no letters, just silence. It was eerie at first, like waiting for the next wave to hit. But it never came, and slowly, I started to feel like myself again. I reconnected with people, real people, people who didn't expect me to bankroll their fantasies. I started going to the gym again. Spent weekends fixing up my place. Got back into reading. Even tried out this cooking class downtown. Spoiler, I still burn garlic, but I'm working on it. Most of all, I learned to appreciate peace. Not the kind you have to fight for or compromise your sanity to earn. Just regular, quiet, uncluttered peace. And yeah, sometimes I still get asked by random relatives why the wedding didn't happen. I keep it simple. Different priorities, I say. She wanted a husband. I wanted a partner. They usually nod. Some give me that look. The one that says, you dodged something there, kid. And they're right. I did. 6 weeks of silence. That's what I had. 6 weeks where I was finally able to breathe without second-guessing every choice I'd made. And just when I was getting used to the stillness, the universe, because it has a dark sense of humor, decided to test me. I was invited to a wedding. My old college roommate, Evan, was finally tying the knot. He'd been through his fair share of relationship disasters, so this one meant something. He was happy, calm, solid. The kind of love story that doesn't need Instagram filters. I wasn't going to say no. I owed him. Plus, I figured it would be a nice reset. Eat, drink, wear a clean suit, and maybe dance badly with strangers. I didn't ask for a +1. No interest. I want to keep it simple. But the moment I walked into the venue, I saw her. Valerie, in a pale blue dress that probably cost more than my first car. Standing at the bar, laughing a little too loudly, surrounded by a crowd of people I recognized from old photos. She hadn't changed much. Same polished curls, same posture like she was about to give a motivational TED talk about manifesting. And the second her eyes landed on me, she froze. I didn't freeze. I didn't even flinch. I just nodded once, the way you do to someone you sort of recognize, but wish you didn't. Then I walked past her and joined the crowd like it didn't matter. I could feel her watching me, like she expected me to come crawling, or at least say something dramatic like, "You look great. I miss you." Nope. Instead, I found a drink, grabbed a mini quiche, and planted myself at a table near the dance floor. 20 minutes later, she was standing next to me. No hello. No warning. Just wow. So you're really not going to say anything? I didn't look at her. I just said, "Hi, Valerie." She sat down across from me, uninvited, like we were still engaged and just having a little spat. "You didn't respond to my letter," she said. "The one your dad sent?" "Yeah. Didn't think it was worth a reply." "No," she said. "Mine. I mailed it. A few days after everything." I blinked. "I never got it." She shrugged. "Maybe your new lawyer intercepted it." "That's kind of the point," I said dryly. She stared at me. "You really think I was just using you? You asked me to buy your parents a house and a car, Valerie. That's not love. That's entitlement." Her voice dropped into that soft, fake humble tone she used to use whenever she wanted something. It wasn't about the stuff. It was symbolic, about honoring where I came from. I laughed. Couldn't help it. "You wanted a Benz as a symbol?" She rolled her eyes. "You're so caught up in the price tag. You always miss the big picture." "No, Valerie. You just painted it with invisible ink." We sat there for a second. The music behind us shifted into something slow and romantic. Couples started drifting onto the dance floor. One of Evan's cousins, drunk and barefoot, giggled as she twirled in a cloud of chiffon. Valerie finally said, "You embarrass me." That made me look up. "You embarrassed yourself," I said. "All I did was say no." "You didn't just say no. You ghosted your fiancé days before the wedding. Days after you made it transactional," I snapped. "After you told me my love had to be proven with a 6-figure down payment." Her expression hardened. "You think you're better than me now?" "No," I said quietly. "I think I finally see you clearly." That shut her up. She blinked a few times, smoothed her dress like it had insulted her, then stood. "For what it's worth," she said, "I did love you." I didn't say anything. She hesitated for a second, like she expected me to soften, to grab her wrist and say, "I loved you too," like we were in a Nicholas Sparks film instead of real life. But I stayed quiet, and she walked away. I stayed for the rest of the wedding. Danced a little, laughed a lot, watched Evan beam like a lighthouse as he slow danced with his new wife. Valerie kept her distance. She floated around like nothing had happened, putting on her usual performance. But I noticed the cracks, the way she looked over her shoulder every few minutes, the fact that she left early. Later that night, Evan and I were sitting on the curb outside the venue, finishing off a bottle of scotch someone smuggled out of the open bar. He looked at me and said, "You okay?" I nodded. "Better than I've been in a long time." He clinked his cup against mine. "You dodged a gold-plated bullet, man." I laughed. "Yeah, and she still tried to charge me for it." The next morning, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Valerie. All it said was, "I hope one day you regret walking away from someone who just wanted to feel valued." I didn't reply. I didn't even save the number. Instead, I took my dog for a walk, made some coffee, and sat on my porch in the quiet morning sun. And I thought, maybe loving someone doesn't mean giving them everything they ask for. Maybe it means having the guts to walk away when they confuse love with leverage. A week after the wedding, I got a call from my mom. She'd heard a version of what happened with Valerie through my cousin, who heard it from someone else, which meant the story had been passed along like a game of telephone and was now probably something like he dumped her at the altar via carrier pigeon after stealing her dog. Mom said gently, "Your aunt says Valerie's been telling people you lost it, that you had a breakdown." I sighed. "Yeah, that tracks. Next it'll be that I joined a cult and changed my name to something like River Sky." Mom chuckled. "Do you want me to say something?" "No," I said. "Let them talk. Anyone who matters already knows the truth." Because here's the truth. I didn't run. I didn't vanish. I just stopped playing along. And the moment I did, the whole house of cards she built came crashing down. But Valerie wasn't done. She couldn't stand that I walked away quietly, that I didn't scream or make a scene or beg for her back. She needed drama. She needed a headline. So she tried to make one. 3 days after the wedding, she posted a long Instagram caption under a black and white photo of us from last fall. One of those styled engagement shoots with matching scarves and fake laughter. The caption was drenched in passive-aggressive poetry and vague accusations. Sometimes love isn't enough when someone is scared of commitment. I tried. I really did. I just wanted to share my life with someone who valued family and tradition. But not everyone is built for forever. I wish him healing and peace. Oh, and she tagged me, like it was a breakup announcement, and I was just another influencer collab that went south. I didn't respond. Not publicly, but I screenshotted it, just in case. Because despite the cringe-worthy caption and the careful wording, she was still poking the bear, still trying to control the narrative. What she didn't count on was that her post would backfire. A couple of her old college friends, people who knew both of us, DM'd me screenshots of their group chat. Apparently, the same day she posted that her dad was bragging at the country club about how close they were to securing the estate, which, by the way, was how he referred to the house I was supposed to buy them. One of her friends even replied to the post, "Wait, didn't your dad literally tell everyone you were getting a house out of this?" It got deleted fast, but screenshots are forever. That post, weirdly, was a turning point. I didn't realize how many people had seen what was happening from the outside. People started reaching out. Old friends, a few distant cousins, even my boss, who said, "Saw the news. Sorry it went down like that. I'm just glad you got out." Got out. It felt weird hearing that, like I'd escaped a burning building. But the more I thought about it, the more accurate it felt. Because Valerie wasn't just a bad fit. She wasn't just manipulative. She existed in this weird, delusional bubble where reality bent around her desires. And I'd spent so long inside that bubble, thinking if I just worked harder, or was more generous, or smiled through the red flags, that would all magically work. Nope. Here's the irony. She loved to say I was too logical, that I overanalyzed things, that I couldn't just feel my way through love. But that logic saved me. It told me something was wrong when she made that demand about her parents. It told me not to trust someone who framed giving her everything as a prerequisite for affection. And it told me, finally, that silence was sometimes louder than any fight. 3 weeks after the wedding that never was, I got a visit. No warning, no text, just a knock on my front door on a Saturday morning. I opened it, and there they were, Valerie's parents. Her dad was in a navy blazer, still playing pretend rich. Her mom wore designer sunglasses, like she thought I'd forgotten how many payment plans they were behind on. They stood on my porch like they were there for a real estate showing. "Good morning," her dad said like we were old poker buddies. I stared. "Why are you here?" "We thought we could have a civil conversation," her mom chimed in, already pushing past me like the invitation was implied. "No," I said, stepping in front of the door. "We're not doing that." Her dad smirked. "Don't be childish. We're all adults here. Adults don't try to emotionally blackmail someone into buying them property," I said calmly. "And they definitely don't show up unannounced to someone's home like debt collectors." He stepped forward, puffing up. "You listen here." "No," I interrupted. "You listen. This is my house. You don't get to barge in like I owe you anything. I gave your daughter love, loyalty, time, money, and patience. She repaid me by trying to treat our marriage like a business transaction. She just wanted stability," her mom sniffed. "She wanted leverage," I said. And when she didn't get it, she spun a sob story. I've let a lot go these past few weeks, but I'm not going to stand here and let either of you pretend to be the victims. Her dad looked like he wanted to yell. Instead, he said, "You'll regret this. You really will. You could have been part of something great." I smiled. "I already am. It's called freedom." Then I shut the door. They stood there for a full 30 seconds. I watched through the peephole. Eventually, they left. No fireworks. Just two people realizing the show was over and the curtain wasn't coming back up. I didn't hear from Valerie after that. No calls. No letters. No performative posts. Nothing. It was like once her family's mission failed, she finally accepted the truth. The gravy train had left the station. I heard from mutuals that she moved to New York, started working for a startup, and was rebranding herself online. New aesthetic. New quotes about self-worth and knowing your value. I hope she figures it out. I mean that, because as much as I'm still untangling everything she twisted in my life, I don't hate her. I just outgrew her. That's the part no one talks about. How sometimes heartbreak isn't about being shattered. Sometimes it's about realizing you were living small for someone who kept shrinking the space you were allowed to take up. Now, I've taken that space back. I started traveling again. I reconnected with old friends. I picked up photography. I even started dating slowly, on my terms, without the pressure of 1,000 expectations. And I bought a new coffee maker. Small thing, but it mattered. The last one Valerie picked out. She always insisted on the brand because it looked good on Instagram. The new one isn't sleek, but it makes damn good coffee. Sometimes I sit on my porch with it, watch the sunrise, and think, damn, that could have been my life. Dodging landmines in a mansion I paid for while her dad asked me to call him boss. Instead, I'm here, peaceful, broke a little emotionally. Sure, the hole in a way I haven't felt in years. I didn't cancel the wedding out of fear. I did it out of clarity. Because when someone says, if you love me, you'll prove it by spending 6 figures on my parents, the only answer with self-respect is silence and a locked door. So no, I don't regret it. I just regret not doing it sooner.